Stop. Do not scroll past this. Take one slow breath in right now and exhale slowly. Did you feel that? That faint pulse in your neck? That slight heaviness behind your eyes when you woke up this morning? Here is the question almost nobody thinks to ask. What is your blood pressure doing at 4:37 in the morning? Because here is what is terrifying about that question. If your blood pressure is dangerously high right now, at this very moment while you are sleeping tonight, you will not feel it. There is no alarm. There is no warning. There is no pain that wakes you up in time. Most strokes do not happen in the afternoon while you are busy and alert. Most heart attacks do not happen while you are at the grocery store. They happen in the early morning hours while you are completely asleep, while your body is supposed to be recovering. And what you drink in the hours before you go to bed tonight could either help protect you through that window or quietly work against you without you ever realizing it. That is not a scare tactic. That is just physiology. And the sooner you understand it, the sooner you can do something about it. Stay with me because what I am about to share with you is not something most doctors take the time to explain clearly. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand your own cardiovascular risk in a way that most people never do. I am Dr. Damuel Thompson. I spent over 2 decades in surgical and cardiovascular practice. I have sat with patients who had perfect daytime blood pressure readings and still suffered strokes. I have reviewed ambulatory blood pressure reports, the kind that measure your pressure every 30 minutes throughout the entire night, and I have seen patterns that should have been caught years earlier. Here is what most people are never told. Your daytime blood pressure reading at your doctor's office is only one piece of the puzzle. It might actually be the less important piece. The real danger zone is what happens to your blood pressure while you sleep. In a healthy cardiovascular system, blood pressure naturally drops during sleep. It falls somewhere between 10 and 20% below your daytime average. This is called nighttime dipping, and it is not just a curiosity. It is an active protection mechanism. While that drop is happening, your heart is resting. Your blood vessels are relaxing. Your kidneys are filtering more efficiently. Your entire cardiovascular system is doing its most important recovery work of the day. But here is the problem. Research shows that up to 40% of people with high blood pressure do not experience this drop. Their blood pressure stays elevated all night long or worse. It spikes dramatically between 4 and 6 in the morning. That 4 to 6 a.m. window is when cardiovascular events are most likely to occur. That is when the combination of rising cortisol, increased heart rate, and blood vessel stiffness creates the most dangerous conditions of the entire 24-hour cycle. These people are called non-dippers, and most of them have no idea they are in this category because nobody is measuring their blood pressure at 3 in the morning. Nobody is checking what their vessels are doing while they sleep. The standard blood pressure cuff at your annual checkup tells you nothing about this. Now, let me ask you something personal. Think back. Think back 10 years ago, maybe 15. Did you fall asleep more easily? Did you wake up feeling genuinely refreshed? Did mornings feel calmer? Did your body feel quieter when you opened your eyes? Now compare that to today. You wake up and something just feels off. There is tension in your neck, a dull pressure behind your forehead. You feel tired even though you technically slept. You wake up once or twice in the night and cannot figure out why. None of this feels dramatic. It just feels like getting older, like something you accept. But here is what I want you to hear very clearly. This is not simply aging. Loss of nighttime blood pressure dipping is not something that was always going to happen to you. It is not written into your genetics as something unavoidable. It is physiological. It is driven by specific, measurable, influenceable factors. Things like inflammation, stress hormone patterns, fluid balance, kidney signaling, and vascular stiffness. All of these things can be moved in a positive direction, and one of the most underestimated ways to influence them is so simple. It almost sounds too easy to be real. It is what you drink before you go to bed. Now, before I get into the specific drinks, I need to make sure you understand the actual mechanism at work here. Because if you understand the why, these recommendations stop sounding like folk remedies and start making biological sense. Picture your arteries like garden hoses, flexible, elastic hoses. During the day, pressure inside those hoses rises and falls constantly in response to movement, stress, food, emotions, and activity. That is completely normal. The hoses stretch and relax thousands of times throughout the day. At night, those hoses are designed to relax almost completely. The inner lining of your arteries, a thin layer of cells called the endothelium, plays a major role in this. When it is functioning properly, it releases a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide tells the surrounding muscle in the artery wall to relax. The vessel widens, blood flows more easily, pressure drops, the system resets. But when stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline stay elevated into the night, when low-grade inflammation is present in the bloodstream, when fluid balance is disrupted, or when the kidneys are under strain, the endothelium cannot do its job properly. Nitric oxide production drops, the vessels stay tight, the hoses stay under pressure, and the body never gets its nighttime reset. That is what a non-dipper looks like on the inside. And that tight pressurized state at 5 in the morning when cortisol is naturally rising again to prepare your body for waking combined with vessels that never relaxed overnight is an extremely dangerous physiological situation. Large studies using 24-hour blood pressure monitoring have shown that people who are non-dippers have significantly higher rates of stroke, heart failure, kidney disease, and overall cardiovascular death, even when their average daytime blood pressure looks completely acceptable. Some researchers now argue that nighttime blood pressure status is more predictive of cardiovascular mortality than daytime readings alone. This is not fringe research. This is published in mainstream cardiology literature. The European Society of Cardiology considers nighttime blood pressure a critical measurement. The American Heart Association has acknowledged its importance for years. The problem is that most routine clinical visits do not include nighttime blood pressure monitoring unless a specific concern has already been raised, which means the majority of people in the non-dipper category are walking around completely unaware. So what can you do about it tonight? What can you do in the next hour before you go to sleep that will actually support your body's ability to dip properly? Tonight, I am going to walk you through 3 specific bedtime drinks that have real scientific evidence behind them for supporting lower blood pressure overnight. I am going to go in order from foundational to clinically powerful. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to use each one, what dose actually matters, what time to drink it, and what mistakes most people make that cancel out the benefits. The number 1 drink on this list has been studied in multiple controlled clinical trials. The results showed average reductions in systolic blood pressure of more than 7 mmHg. That is not a trivial number. Some prescription blood pressure medications in their standard doses produce reductions in that same range. But first, before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Have you ever actually measured your blood pressure first thing in the morning? Before you eat anything, before you drink anything, before you even get out of bed? That morning number is one of the most important cardiovascular data points you can track, and most people never do it. Tell me in the comments what your typical morning reading looks like. We genuinely learn from each other here, and your answer helps me create better content for this community. Now let us start with drink number 3, and I want to start by correcting a misconception because this one gets dismissed constantly. Low-fat milk. The typical reaction when I mention this is a shrug. Milk is neutral. People think it is just a food. It does not really do anything for blood pressure. That assumption is wrong. Low-fat milk contains 3 minerals that work together in a very specific way to support healthy vascular function: calcium, magnesium, and potassium. These 3 minerals are not just generally healthy. They play direct roles in how your blood vessels contract and relax and how your kidneys manage fluid and sodium balance. Let me explain each one briefly. Calcium is involved in muscle contraction throughout your body, including the smooth muscle that wraps around your blood vessels. When calcium regulation is off, those muscles can stay in a more contracted state. Blood vessels tighten. Pressure rises. Potassium works partly by helping your kidneys excrete sodium. Most people know that excess sodium raises blood pressure. What they do not think about is that adequate potassium is one of the mechanisms that counteracts that effect. When potassium intake is low, which is extremely common in modern diets, sodium is retained, fluid is retained, and blood pressure trends higher. Magnesium is perhaps the most underappreciated of the 3. Magnesium acts almost like a natural calcium channel blocker, which is exactly how a whole class of blood pressure medications works. It helps relax vascular smooth muscle. It supports nitric oxide production. It has mild natural calming effects on the nervous system, which matters for overnight cortisol levels. Multiple large observational studies have found that regular consumption of low-fat dairy is associated with meaningfully lower risk of developing hypertension. The DASH diet, which is one of the most well-researched dietary approaches for blood pressure, specifically includes 2 to 3 servings of low-fat dairy per day as one of its core components. The DASH diet has been shown to reduce systolic blood pressure by 8 to 14 mmHg in clinical trials. That is a significant and clinically meaningful reduction. Now, the timing here matters. 1 cup of skim or 1% milk consumed 30 to 60 minutes before bed gives your body time to begin absorbing those minerals during the early sleep window when the nighttime dipping process ideally begins. The most common mistake people make with this one is choosing whole milk instead. The saturated fat content in whole milk appears to partially counteract the vascular benefits of the calcium and potassium. The research on dairy and blood pressure consistently points toward low-fat varieties as the beneficial option. This is not about calories. It is about the specific vascular mechanism being supported. One more thing worth mentioning about milk and sleep. It contains small amounts of tryptophan, a precursor to serotonin and melatonin. This will not knock you out, but it contributes in a minor way to the overall effect you are aiming for with a bedtime drink, which is a gentle, calming signal to the nervous system before sleep. Simple, foundational, backed by decades of dietary research, underrated. But now, let us move to something that works through a completely different pathway. And this one surprises people because they think of it as a relaxation tool, not a cardiovascular one: chamomile tea. The misconception here is this: chamomile helps you sleep, sure, but it is not really doing anything for your blood pressure. It is just calming you down. That framing misses the entire point. Sleep quality and blood pressure are not two separate things. They are deeply, directly, mechanistically linked. And once you understand that connection, you realize that anything that meaningfully improves your sleep is by definition improving your cardiovascular risk profile overnight. Here is the chain of events. When you sleep poorly, several things happen simultaneously in your body. Cortisol levels stay elevated longer into the night and rise earlier in the morning. Your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, remains more active. Inflammatory markers in your blood increase. All 3 of these effects independently keep blood pressure elevated and directly suppress your body's ability to achieve nighttime dipping. Poor sleep is not just unpleasant. Poor sleep is a cardiovascular risk factor. Now, where does chamomile come in specifically? Chamomile contains a compound called apigenin. Apigenin binds to receptors in the brain that are part of the same system targeted by certain calming medications. It reduces anxiety signaling, promotes relaxation, and supports the transition into deeper, more restful sleep without the dependency risks associated with pharmaceutical options. Studies on chamomile have shown reductions in anxiety scores, improvements in sleep quality metrics, and in some trials, modest reductions in inflammatory markers that are directly associated with vascular dysfunction. One study specifically found improvements in nighttime cardiovascular parameters in participants who consumed chamomile extract regularly. The mechanism is not complicated. Chamomile quiets the nervous system. A quieter nervous system means lower nighttime cortisol. Lower nighttime cortisol means less sympathetic activation on your blood vessels. Less activation means better relaxation. Better relaxation means better dipping. You do not need to have a diagnosed anxiety disorder for this to apply to you. Most adults in modern life are carrying chronic low-grade stress that they have normalized. Now for the usage, 2 tea bags, not 1. This is where most people shortchange themselves. 1 tea bag steeped for 2 minutes is not going to produce a meaningful concentration of apigenin. You need 2 bags steeped for a minimum of 5 to 7 minutes with the cup covered, ideally covered with a small plate to trap the steam and prevent the volatile compounds from escaping during steeping. Drink this 30 to 45 minutes before you intend to go to sleep. You want the apigenin in your system and beginning to work before your head hits the pillow, not after. The most common mistake with chamomile is weak preparation. People grab a single bag of a generic grocery store blend, steep it for 90 seconds in lukewarm water, and then wonder why they do not notice any effect. Chamomile is dosed by concentration. Proper steeping matters more than most people realize. There is also a secondary benefit worth mentioning. The ritual itself, the act of preparing a warm drink, holding it, sitting quietly for a few minutes, has a measurable calming effect on the nervous system that is entirely separate from the chamomile's pharmacological action. You are essentially training your body's arousal system to begin winding down at a consistent time each evening. Over weeks, this becomes a genuinely powerful sleep anchor. Now, we are moving into the third category. This is where the clinical trial data becomes difficult to ignore. We are talking about something that is not a supplement, not a medication, not something you have to special order. It is a tea, a deeply colored, tart, beautiful red tea that has been consumed for centuries in parts of Africa and the Caribbean, and that has now been studied in multiple rigorous clinical trials for its effects on blood pressure. Hibiscus tea, specifically tea made from Hibiscus subdarifa, the dried calices of the hibiscus flower. The misconception: it is just herbal tea. It is pleasant. Maybe it has some antioxidants, but it is not going to move the needle on something as serious as blood pressure. This misconception is not just wrong, it is significantly wrong. Hibiscus works through multiple distinct biological pathways simultaneously. Let me walk you through each one, because understanding these mechanisms is what separates someone who uses this correctly and consistently from someone who drinks it twice and forgets about it. First pathway: hibiscus functions as a natural ACE inhibitor. ACE inhibitors work by blocking a specific enzyme that regulates blood vessel constriction and fluid retention. When ACE activity is blocked, blood vessels relax, sodium excretion improves, and blood pressure falls. Second pathway: hibiscus improves endothelial function. It directly supports the artery lining's ability to produce nitric oxide, which causes blood vessels to relax and widen. Third pathway: hibiscus has mild diuretic properties. It gently increases the rate at which your kidneys excrete sodium and fluid. Less volume means lower pressure. Fourth pathway: hibiscus reduces arterial stiffness. Research on hibiscus has shown measurable improvements in arterial elasticity markers, suggesting it actually supports the structural health of the arterial wall. Now, the clinical trial data, multiple randomized controlled trials found an average reduction in systolic blood pressure of approximately 7 mmHg. Some trials have shown even larger effects approaching 10 mmHg. To put that in perspective, the first-line medication lisinopril typically produces systolic reductions in a similar range. For the overnight blood pressure benefit, specifically the timing of your second serving matters. Here's the protocol: 2 servings of hibiscus tea per day. Your first serving in the late afternoon around 3 to 5 p.m. Your second serving 45 to 60 minutes before bed. Preparation matters significantly with hibiscus. You need 2 to 3 grams of dried hibiscus per serving, steeped in hot water for a minimum of 6 to 8 minutes. Do not add sugar. If the tartness is a problem, a small amount of raw honey is acceptable. The most critical mistake people make with hibiscus is inconsistency. The research shows that measurable vascular changes typically require 2 to 4 weeks of consistent daily use before blood pressure readings begin to reflect the underlying physiological improvement. Week 1, you are building concentration. Week 2, the endothelium is beginning to respond. Week 3, the renin-angiotensin system is beginning to adapt. Week 4 is when many people first see a shift in their morning readings. If you stop after day 5, you are leaving the entire therapeutic effect on the table. Now, I want to add some additional context about what affects your overnight blood pressure that goes beyond the drinks themselves. Let us talk about sodium timing. Eating a high-sodium meal within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime appears to impair nighttime dipping more significantly than the same meal eaten earlier in the day. Let us talk about alcohol. Alcohol has a significant rebound effect in the second half of the night. As it is metabolized, it activates the sympathetic nervous system and raises blood pressure during the 4 to 6 a.m. window. Let us talk about light exposure. Blue light suppresses melatonin, which has direct vascular effects. Even 30 minutes of screen-free time before bed creates a meaningfully different environment for your cardiovascular system. Let us talk about meal timing. Finishing your last significant meal at least 3 hours before bed supports the vascular conditions we are trying to optimize. Let us talk about sleep position. Research has found that left-side sleeping may be associated with slightly better blood pressure regulation overnight due to better kidney blood flow. Finally, let us talk about sleep apnea. If you snore heavily or wake up feeling unrested, a sleep study is critical. Untreated sleep apnea dramatically limits the effectiveness of any other blood pressure intervention. When you combine the mineral support of low-fat milk, the nervous system quieting effect of chamomile, and the multi-pathway action of hibiscus, you are addressing 3 distinct physiological mechanisms simultaneously. A practical protocol might look like this. In the late afternoon, around 4 p.m., brew a strong cup of hibiscus tea. About 45 minutes before bed, brew your chamomile. About 30 minutes before bed, finish with a small cup of low-fat milk. You are going to bed with your nervous system quieted, your vascular minerals topped up, your ACE pathway gently inhibited, and your endothelium prepared. Track your morning blood pressure every morning and average 2 readings. You are looking for a trend over 2 to 4 weeks. Now, a safety note. Hibiscus can enhance the effects of blood pressure medication. If you are on medication, monitor your pressure closely and speak with your doctor if you feel dizzy or notice significant drops. Do not manage it alone. Low-fat milk is not a one-size-fits-all solution, particularly for those who deal with lactose intolerance or have a specific allergy to dairy products. If you find yourself in that situation, a great alternative is unsweetened oat milk, as long as you choose a brand that has been enriched with calcium and potassium. While the exact balance of nutrients isn't a perfect mirror of what you find in cow's milk, it still provides the kind of support your body needs. It is also vital to remember that none of these beverages are meant to be a replacement for medical therapy. If your physician has already put you on a blood pressure medication, you must keep taking that medicine exactly the way it was prescribed. Think of these drink strategies as extra help. They are meant to be complementary and additive. They work together with your doctor's treatment plan. They do not take its place. I also want to talk about a common hurdle people face when they begin monitoring their blood pressure at home. Once you start these lifestyle changes, you might expect the numbers to drop in a perfectly straight line, but that is rarely what happens. You are going to have some mornings where your reading looks higher than it did a few days ago, even if you followed your routine perfectly. Please understand that this is totally normal. Your blood pressure is constantly reacting to dozens of different factors, like how much stress you felt the day before, how many hours you slept, your hydration levels, or even a salty meal you had for dinner. A single difficult conversation can make your numbers spike temporarily. Because of this, one single reading doesn't tell us much. However, if you look at the average of 14 to 30 readings over a month, you get a much clearer picture of your health. Don't let a bad morning get you down, and don't let one good morning make you think the job is finished. We are looking for a steady downward trend in your average over several weeks. That is what shows us that your body is truly adapting and getting healthier. There is another tool I want to share that supports every heart-healthy mechanism we've discussed, yet most people ignore it because it seems too simple. I am talking about slow, intentional breathing. There is actually a lot of medical proof that breathing slowly, aiming for about 5 or 6 full breaths per minute instead of the usual 12 to 18, can lower your blood pressure significantly. This works by signaling your nervous system to switch gears. It moves you away from a fight-or-flight mode and into a calm state, which helps lower the stress hormones that keep your arteries tight. Some studies have found that doing just 10 minutes of this controlled breathing every day can be as effective as light exercise for your heart. Imagine tonight, while your chamomile tea is steeping for those few minutes, you sit quietly and breathe in for a count of 6 and out for a count of 6. In that short window, you are doing something very powerful for your cardiovascular system. You are helping your body reach the relaxed state it needs to lower your blood pressure while you sleep. When you combine this slow breathing with the chamomile, the hibiscus, and the milk, you are helping your heart from 4 different directions at once. You are calming your nerves, giving your body the right minerals, helping your vessels relax, and improving the health of your artery linings. This is a real, serious protocol for your heart, even if it just feels like tea and a few deep breaths. Your challenge starting tonight is very simple. Just pick one of these drinks. You don't have to do everything at once. Start with whatever is easiest for you to find. If you have chamomile, use that. If you have hibiscus, start there. The most important thing is that you stay consistent for 30 days. Use the same drink at the same time every night. Make sure to check your blood pressure every single morning before you have breakfast. At the end of the month, look back at your numbers. Compare the average from your first week to the average of your last week. That data is your own personal proof that the strategy is working for you. Having your own data is an amazing way to get rid of the fear and worry that often comes with high blood pressure. If you want to add a second drink or a new habit later on, you can do that in the second month. The goal isn't to change your whole life in one day. The goal is to build a routine that you can actually stick with so your heart can recover. I want to leave you with a thought I share with my patients when they feel like their health is out of their hands. Your heart and your arteries are not fragile. They are built to change and adapt. They respond to the signals you give them. Good signals, like the ones we've talked about today, move you toward health. Even if you've had high pressure for years, your body is never past the point where it can improve. I have seen artery health improve and nighttime blood pressure levels return to normal in people in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. You are not too old, and it is never too late for these changes to matter. Your body still knows how to heal itself. It just needs the right environment. In the next video, I am going to talk about a specific habit that almost everyone does in the evening without realizing it is ruining their heart's recovery. Even if you drink all the right teas and eat a perfect diet, this one habit can undo all your hard work and stop your blood pressure from dropping at night. Hardly anyone knows that this specific habit is linked to heart health, but it might be the reason your numbers aren't improving. If you want to protect your heart and make sure you are safe while you sleep, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that next update. It could be the most important lesson in this whole series. I am Dr. Samuel Thompson, and I will see you in the next video.